Good evening. Today we're going to be talking about economic systems. This is the first of a two-part lesson again. I do that simply because it might be longer than 15 minutes and, well, that's all the longer YouTube allows me to put up. If you think back to our lesson on economic reasoning, we talked about how the different systems that you're a part of influence the incentives that you have. In other words, what rules you have to live by influence what choices you make. And really, in the world today, there are just two systems and then shades of each in the middle. There's neither a pure on either side really anymore. China used to be an example of a pure communist system. America has never been a pure capitalist system, no matter how much some of us would like it to be or some ideologues would like it to be. It's not pure. In fact, one of the hardest parts to come to reasoning with is the fact that we all are a little bit hypocritical on this because we all like our own version of socialism. So, as we talk about this, the first thing we have to remember is we're dealing with the government here, and we have some fundamental questions. At the root of it, what are we asking? Well, every government has had to answer these questions. Every government has had to answer some basic fundamental questions, like, what are we going to produce? What are we going to make? Given all the resources of our country, what will we make? How are we going to make it? Who's going to work there? How are we going to set up the factories? How do they get paid? How do we determine? Are we going to worry about environmental standards? All these variety of questions. And third, and this is where the controversy really comes in, for whom is it going to be produced? In other words, once it's made, who either gets it or who gets the benefit of having made it? And that's where the real sticking point comes in. All governments are going to answer these questions differently. Really, they're going to answer along a spectrum of one of two things: a command economy or a market economy. In other words, does the government command the economy what to do, or do we let markets decide? Now, I'm guessing most of you haven't heard these terms before, but we can also break this down further or restate this further with the terms, I hope that doesn't pop up for you guys, or with the terms socialism versus capitalism. And so we hear the term socialism thrown around a lot, and I think it's a very, very misunderstood term. Capitalism is what we define in America as our ideology, what we want to base things on, and then we tend to demonize socialism. We're going to break those things down more in further PowerPoints, but just remember that's really the debate, and then where on the spectrum do you fall? Well, if we want to look then at the command economy and the market economy and how they answer those three questions, we're just going to do that side by side. And so the first question again is, what are we going to produce? So in a command economy, the government will tell firms, which is another word for companies, what to make and how much of it to make. There's a great story about Russia where they said, all right, we have these Cossack hats here. That's what these fuzzy little hats are. And Russians will be patriotic, so over a 5-year plan, Russia always has these 5-year plans. How many of these do we need to make? And they said, well, we need to make X. Call it 3 million. And then we're 20 years later, and they still have millions of these Cossack hats sitting around in warehouses. The government decided this is how much we're going to use. The bad thing is when we go back and think about those factors of production, well, think of all the stuff that's wasted that you can't get back, and what you have out of it is Cossack hats. We'll explain more later. How are we going to produce it? Well, again, the government. They assign workers based on criteria to jobs. In many communist countries, what we would see is proficiency exams, where you took an exam and it said this is where you fit, these are your skills, and this is what you're going to do for a job. If you don't like it, then you don't get to work. Or in some extreme cases, then we shoot you. If you don't like the job, you don't have a choice. Everyone has a job. This is where you fit. The idea is the government knows best what it needs from its citizens and what they are qualified to do. Third, for whom? My apologies. The government owns all the resources, which is why they're able to do this. They're able to tell people what to do because in all honesty, since they're the one that own the factors of production, they can tell it what to do. So they own the land, you just rent it, or you're just allowed to use it. They own the labor in that they tell you what to do. They own all the capital, all of the tools, all the manufacturing. It's part of the state. So then for whom to produce, and we have a quote here, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And this is Karl Marx, a famous German social scientist. I think economist is the wrong word, but you can call him that if you want to. Philosopher, political scientist, variety of things. And he came out with this basic phrase for how society should live, that each will work as hard as possible, and everyone has different abilities. And then everyone has these basic needs, so we'll share. That's really what this is we're going to pool all our resources, and the government will assign it to other people, and we'll share. According to him, that was the fairest way, and eventually all governments would end up like that. Government makes all the choices. That's the key to a command economy. Think of the word command, pretty simple. Communism is the key example to think about. Now, a market economy then. What are we talking about? Well, instead of the government telling people what to produce, how do we know what we make? How many shoes should Nike make? How many iPads should Apple make? How many McDonald's burgers should be cooked in a day? Well, if we don't have the government telling us, who tells us what to produce then? And the answer is the market. We call this the product market. In other words, when I go to Apple and I buy an iPad, they look at the numbers and say, hey, we sold X number of iPads, we should make more. They're told this because the stores say, hey, we're out. If you look, when I'm recording this, Apple just released the new iPad, the not released, maybe iPad HD, I'm not sure what they're going to call it. But what we see is they sold out so fast on the pre-orders that you can't even order them for the first shipment. So what do? They're going to keep production high. That's the signal. The market, in other words, when I go to a store and choose to buy something, that sends a signal to the company to make more. How do we produce it? Well, the government doesn't tell me who's going to work where, and the government doesn't own all the resources. Individuals do. How do we know what we're going to produce? The factor market. In other words, all of these factors of production have signals they send. How's it going to be produced? Well, if the price of oil goes way up, well, what are we going to see? We're going to see people who decide to use alternative energy because it becomes more affordable. If the number of doctors goes way down because the price of insurance goes up, what are we going to see? Well, fewer people become doctors, and then naturally we're going to have other things that need to fall into the middle there to help out. And lastly, again, the controversial part, for whom to produce. Who gets the benefits of this? And in a market, we just say the goods and the factors market. Where are they combined? As a teacher, I have a set salary that I can command. If I don't like the salary here, I can go someplace else. And guess what? This is where the labor market is the most inefficient, the most wasteful, because I don't want to leave close to where my family is. But I could make more money teaching in other school districts. If I cross the river, I make more money. If I go out of state to places like Texas, Nevada, I could make more money, and my money would go further. I'm sure some of you are wishing right now I would listen to that and go find a job in another state. Too bad. Individuals make all the choices. And that's an overstatement. Just like in a command economy, government makes all the choices. Well, government is made up of individuals. In a market economy, there are other things that affect it. But if we're talking about the purest sense of command and market, we're going to say in a market, individuals choose, nobody gets involved, there's no government regulation. And in a command, the government makes all the choices. Individuals have no sway. Well, this leads us to a couple of debate issues then. As we sit here and say, well, which should I have? In my country, which should I have? We have a couple of questions. The first one is the distribution of wealth fair? In other words, we have this big pile of money, of capital, and we divide it up among all our citizens. Is it fair? And both sides have to be able to say yes to their citizens. And to be honest, this is where truth gets confusing for people because both sides are right. The key is, what is your definition of fair? And so to command economy, they say, yeah, everyone has the same, so it's fair. If everyone makes $35,000, whether they're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a McDonald's restaurant worker, or a plumber, everyone makes $35,000, so it is by definition fair. Some of you are going, wait a minute, wait a minute, how is that right? A doctor makes the same as somebody who flips burgers at McDonald's. In a market economy, we look at what the command does and say, well, that's inherently unfair. We say everyone earns what they deserve. So yes, in other words, we assume the person who is a doctor spent many, many years working hard in a school, sacrificing, working long hours, and so they deserve this. In a command economy, they would say, well, that person has more ability. Therefore, the same amount of work that's required to become a doctor for them is what it takes for some people to become McDonald's workers. And so both sides say yes and can honestly say yes, but both sides completely disagree. The second question is this: is our system stable? Can we depend on it? Will it be here in 5 years, or are we going to have turmoil? Because citizens do not want turmoil. In a command economy, they obviously say yes. The government plans in advance, so there are no surprises. We know how much food is going to be made. We know how many buildings are going to be made. We know what the population is going to grow because we're telling people what to do. Remember, in China, even they dictated, and still do to a large degree, how many children you can have, so they can plan for houses. So there are no surprises. It will be here. In a market economy, we say, yeah, markets have our ups and downs, but the key is this: it's stable because it consistently grows over time. If you look at a market long enough, you're going to see that we have growth. And with growth comes prosperity. All right. In the next section, we're going to talk about our U.S. economic system.